Relocation can affect a custody agreement at its core because when you're dealing with where people live, that's the foundational question from which all other decisions are derived, right? So, like, where you live usually affects where the kids go to school. It affects what soccer team they're on, what dance team they're on. So, in the custody modification component, if you're trying to relocate, what you're going to a judge and saying is like, look, these two home foundations that we've built, for whatever reason, they're not good enough anymore, good enough for me or the kids or whatever the reason is. And I want to move one of those situations away to some other state, some other city. So like even just me doing the motions feels like, ooh, I don't know about that, because you're changing everything. Whichever party tries to move, you're changing schools, dance teams, like all of that stuff. So to try to understand how it can impact your custody modification, you need to see a relocation as a really big hurdle. And just because you met a new boyfriend is not a good enough reason to move to Houston, okay? Like that is probably not gonna do it. It has to be something really, really significant to convince a judge to let you do that. To navigate custody modifications when you're trying to relocate, I want you to think of yourself as like one of those museum people who puts on these white gloves and is like very careful with the painting, okay? Because more than likely, if you want to relocate when you've already got an established two-home situation from your initial order or your initial custody stuff in your decree, undoing these two places is really hard, especially when you're going in front of a judge. Generally speaking, in my experience, judges don't like moving kids. They like to keep the status quo. They believe that keeping things in motion, letting them stay in motion is best because of the stability. And like, I get it. Now, sometimes you may think, well, Hannah, it's not that stable. He never visits the kids anyway. And there's all these reasons, right? So there are reasons why a court might be willing to do that. But if you start from the assumption of, I got a really tall mountain to climb, I think that can help you a lot. And like the best way to get what you want is to cut a deal with your co-parent. Like, what do you have that they want? What can you like horse trade here? Could you let them out of paying child support if they'll let you move from Austin to Dallas? Could you, I don't know, often it's about money because like your property and stuff from the divorce, that's already all handled. So you don't really have that kind of leverage. But how could you try to get that agreement? But like if you sit down in my office and you say, hey, I want to relocate, but the other parent's super opposed to it, I'm like, ooh, bummer. Then probably we're not. Like, are they kind of involved? Like a decent gal or a decent dude? Well, yeah, I mean, but he's really a pain and he's always basically mean to me on Our Family Wizard. Like, that is not gonna do it. The situation where maybe it could happen is you have some pretty bad facts on the other side or like really good facts on your side. Like you got the opportunity of a lifetime to relocate back to Seattle where you're from and your grandma is, and you go there every summer anyway, and you get free childcare, and oh my gosh, you'll have all this money, and at that job, your kids get free college tuition. So like, can you stack up the deck a lot? Maybe then you can do it. But in general, I suggest you not try to file a custody modification for a relocation unless, look, we file custody modifications when we don't have another choice, basically. Because I always say, surefire way to break your heart and empty your pocketbook is to file a custody mod. And I've been involved in two because those were the only choices that I had. So maybe a relocation for whatever reason is your only choice. Like, okay, get a legal team who's experienced in dealing with that. And you may end up finding yourself in front of a jury because in my experience, judges are a lot more adverse, like against relocating children than juries are. And in Texas, we can try issues of like who's the primary parent and the geographic restriction to a jury. I know it's kind of crazy. It's like a TV movie, but you can do that. And that may be your way to get there. If you want to relocate, you may find yourself in front of a jury, but get ready to write some big checks. If I had one tip for parents who are trying to co-parent after a relocation, it would be the golden rule. Just do to them what you wish they would do to you, whether or not they also employ the golden rule. So, like, would you want to be informed about this, that, and the other at the kids' school? Tell them. Would you want them to help support, make sure the kids have like a free, clear, private space to talk to you a couple times a week instead of like on the way to get snow cones at the t-ball game? Like, show up in a way that supports this other parent's relationship with your kids. And it's not easy. It's not easy to do that when maybe the other parent undermines you at every chance they could possibly get. And yet, all we can control is our side of the table. You can behave in a way that lets you sleep at night. And I promise you, as these kids get older, they will see. They will see that mom always made it easy for them to love their dad and to talk to their dad and to be there on the calls. And maybe they'll see that dad wasn't the same, and that will go into their spirit and their psyche. Because y'all remember, 50% of the DNA of that kiddo is your other parents. And if you be ugly about them or make things hard about them, you're being ugly in their little heart about half of who they are. So tread carefully and really try to do to them what you would wish they would do to you. There are certain legal challenges you're going to face if you're trying to relocate your kids. And the number one thing really is, in the family law world in Texas, there's kind of like this presumption against moving kids. So you're a presumption's like an assumption, right? You assume this thing. So you're trying to overcome a presumption that kids should stay where they are. So you're fighting a system, you're fighting an uphill battle. It doesn't mean it can't happen. Look, if you don't ask, you won't get. So that's your only way to do it. I was successful in a relocation case. My own self. And there were a lot of facts that went into why that happened. So it can happen. And like, it may be worth it, but you got to tread really carefully because you're up against a tall hurdle. If you would like more information on considering whether you should pursue a relocation through a custody modification in your family and whether it's time to actually go ahead and do something, Hembree Bell Law offers free case evaluations, and we'd be happy to talk through with you how we might be able to help support your family overcoming this big hurdle.